Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Rahmel, a writer for Instinct Magazine, and I'm here with Dr. Carlton, who I discovered at midnight in bed, scrolling on TikTok, and I was like, I just have to talk to this guy. So, Dr. Carlton, thank you for joining me. Why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you grew up, and how you got into the medical profession?
Well, thank you, Rahmel. I'm Dr. Carlton. That's my social media name on Instagram and on TikTok. I am from South Carolina originally. I grew up in the deep South in a deeply conservative tobacco town. And it's one of those little towns in the South where there's a church on every street corner. And let's just say those churches aren't exactly run by rocket scientists. So So the thinking was a lot more backwards and conservative. And certainly as a young kid at 7, when I was twirling around in the yard pretending to be Wonder Woman, I knew I was different.
Come on.
So, I definitely didn't fit in. But obviously in the South, there's really not much to do other than go to church on Sunday and on Wednesday when the doors open, we were there. My little town didn't have much going on. My dad was chronically ill when I was a kid, and so we spent a lot of time in doctors' waiting rooms and in hospitals. And I was always really grateful to my father's caretakers, and I really admired them and held them at on a pedestal. So I wanted to be like that when I grew up. I wanted to be able to help other people's dads and moms and brothers and sisters and kids. So I set my mind early on to become a doctor, and I really stuck with it. I went straight through high school. I went to college in South Carolina and med school. And then I was very lucky to be able to attend residency and fellowship training at the world's best medical institution, the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. So I was just, really lucky. I worked really hard. I set my goals early, and I just did everything I could do to reach my goals. That being said, as a young gay man, I'm almost 50, but as a young gay man in the 80s.
You look great for almost it.
Thank you. But I really was terrified of being gay. When I was growing up, gay people were dying left and right from AIDS. And there was so much stigma about HIV and AIDS, and very little education, especially in the South. It was held as a punishment, against our community. And I always just thought I was a doomed person. I never thought I would see 50. So it really messed with my mind. It messed with my mind a lot about sex too, because not only did I fear the stigma of being gay, I fear the stigma of having gay sex, because back then it could mean you could die. So a lot of baggage there, but luckily I in my time in Minnesota, I was in a relationship with someone who introduced me to the Human Rights Campaign. And I saw how successful people can be, how gay people thrive, and gay people are at the top of the game. I mean,
They are.
fashion, business, now these days, music, it's just, it was a real eye opener to see that kind of success all around me. It inspired me and said, hey, just because you're gay, it doesn't mean that you have any negatives against you. You can go for it and reach the top. So I really, really, made the most of that experience, and it gave me a lot of self-confidence. I sadly, throughout my medical education, well, hell, even from middle school to high school, college, med school, even residency and fellowship, gay sex was uniformly not talked about. I think the only sex education I got in high school was one afternoon, our PE coach talked to us about how you better not have sex, and if you have sex, you better use a condom. And it certainly wasn't anything about gay sex. So the lack of gay sex education even in the medical side of things is really ridiculous. And so I've always found that an area where I wanted to improve the world.
I mean, it's almost like systemic homophobia. It really is. It's something that needs to be discussed. So I'm glad you're
Yeah,
discussing it, going
I'm
viral.
I'm
Um,
hope I'm hoping right now that med schools and residencies and fellowship programs are doing a better job of addressing gay, bi, trans, queer health, lesbian health. I know the Gay and Lesbian Medical Association, which I'm a part of, the glma.org. It's a good resource for our community to reach out and find doctors who are LGBTQ friendly and or who are LGBTQ themselves.
yeah,
It's not easy to find a provider depending on where you live, but that resource really helps at their website.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So how do you go from the wholesome kid,
Mhm.
medical school, a practicing doctor now? How do we get into you now turning into literally an influencer and a viral TikTok star? I mean, over 3 million likes, almost 250,000 followers on TikTok. How did that happen?
Well, luckily, my life is really blessed. I have two children who are 16 years old. I have an amazing husband, all very supportive, very amazing folks. But my kids, early on in the pandemic, as I was really emotionally struggling with anxiety, because suddenly you go from going and doing your job like a normal person to going in and risking your life to do your job every day, and I was absolutely terrified that something bad was going to happen to me. And I'm the sole provider for my family, so it really had my anxiety level on high. So I noticed my kids were on TikTok a lot. At this point in the pandemic, they were in their early to mid teens.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let's check this out and see what it's all about. I mean, they spend so much time on it. There's got to be something to it. And so I turned it on one night at 8 o'clock, and I looked up at 12 o'clock and realized 4 hours of my life had gone by, and I had laughed and cried and learned how to cook chili and saw some hot guys. And I think within about 15 minutes, TikTok figured out I was gay. So honey, the algorithm works. So and for some reason they knew I liked hairy guys like really fast. So it's just one of those things. So yeah, TikTok has got the magic, honey.
By the way, but go ahead.
So anyway, I was a lurker for a few months, and it really relieved my anxiety to be able to just chill out and focus my energy on other things other than worrying about dying. So I decided to post something one day, and I posted a few little things for a while, and I got up to about 1,000 followers where you could go live. But my stuff wasn't really taking off. And I said, well, what do I offer to the community that other people don't? And well, I'm a gay man. I'm almost 50 years old. I have a lot of experience being gay and having gay sex. And I'm a gastroenterologist, which is a specialist in the digestive system, from mouth down to anus. And that covers a lot of what we do. Who better to talk about gay sex, how to do it well, how to do it right, and how to do it enjoyably than someone with this amount of experience and this amount of medical knowledge about it. So I put all that together. Even though I didn't really receive focused education on all that stuff, I brought all the other aspects of my education into this and said, let's make some videos. So I got my nerve up one day. I decided, okay, I'm going to make one about how to prepare for anal sex, how to lubricate for anal sex, and how to relax for anal sex. And let's just see what happens. With the way TikTok's algorithm is, you have to be very, very careful with what you say. I had to use a lot of code words, like instead of saying sex or saying anal, I would say the event, or have to use code words, or when you go in,
It's like code back in the 90s, which you should be used to. You grew up in that era.
Absolutely. Yeah. So all this code language to be able to get my point across. So I was worried, okay, this topic is really controversial for TikTok because a lot of kids are on it. I want to use a code language so that I don't have this stuff fall into the wrong hands. At the same time, I want to be able to educate people properly. So I posted this series of 2 videos. I think it was called Butt Stuff 1 and 2, which now TikTok won't even let you put the word butt stuff in a video. Yeah. So at that point, they were letting me put Butt Stuff 1 and 2 in my 2 videos. And magically, I thought, this is either going to flop or it's going to be a big thing. Also, this could make people angry and I might have to delete my account. So I posted the videos. Within 5 minutes, the first response was from a housewife in Iowa who said, "How dare you post such videos on TikTok? This is an app for 12-year-old children."
Karen.
Yeah, total Karen, just absolutely losing her mind. And I thought, okay, I can either block her or I can delete my account or delete these videos. So I chose to block her. And I put my phone down, I turned it off. I woke up the next morning and I had about 50,000 new followers. So I knew I had hit a nerve.
Insane.
Yeah. So, and the other thing that was really funny about it is I thought, okay, all the gay dudes are following me. All these gay men are just following me because they want to talk about butt stuff. So I looked at the analytics, which you can do once you have a certain amount of followers. And my new followers the majority were women. So,
all right. I can't have the analytic feed yet. All right. But go ahead.
So yeah, and it just hits home that anal sex is not just for gay people. Anal sex is for anyone who has an anus. You can be gay, straight, bi, male, female, non-binary, trans, whatever. Butt stuff is for anyone who has a butt.
That's true.
Yeah. So, and as we evolve over time, more and more people in the straight world as well are experimenting with anal sex. Even women are starting to peg their men. It's becoming a big phenomenon.
It is. I can't tell you how many of my girlfriends at brunch are asking me more and more questions about anal and how to douche and this and that. It's stepping outside of just gay culture, and that's why I think why your TikTok is so important. Because there's a lot of people late at night looking for information and they're too ashamed to either ask about it openly or to, have the conversation even with their friends. So if they look at Carlton's TikTok, you're answering all the questions.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. And I kind of moved on, not only from just talking about anal sex, but talking about things I thought our community needed to talk about, especially those facets of our community where healthcare isn't really covered properly, or even gay sex education isn't covered properly. So I talk about things like PrEP, post-exposure prophylaxis, or PEP. I talk about HIV, U equals U. I talk about proper STI testing. I talk about so many different things that are just kind of taboo subjects or poorly talked about in our community. And the really awesome part of all of this is that it's not only reaching, the community in the United States, it's a worldwide reach. I'm getting messages from people, especially on my Instagram, from places like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Egypt, even parts of India, Southeast Asia, where being gay is punishable in some areas by even execution, gay sex at least, if not imprisonment in other places, or just, in some places just being completely shunned by society. So I'm really a source of information and question asking for people who don't have anyone else to turn to without the fear of such persecution.
Being shamed or condemned, yeah. So these people are reaching out and asking you what sort of questions?
Well, I'll give an example. There was a young man in Saudi Arabia who messaged me frantically saying that he had unprotected anal sex with a man and had something going on with his butt, and he didn't know what to do. He was terrified that if he went to his local doctor and they found out that he had some sort of anal STI, that he could be executed.
Right.
So he just needed to talk to somebody and to find out what this might be. And so I said, well, there's really not a whole lot I can do from this far away, but you could maybe send me a vanishing picture of what's happening. And I can look at it real quick on Instagram and let you know what I think. This, just to give an opinion, not medical advice, but an opinion. because you have to be careful about that. And they did, and it was just a hemorrhoid. And I said, okay, that's just a hemorrhoid. Don't worry about it. This is what you do to treat hemorrhoids. And to take that worry off of someone's shoulder about, oh my God, I could die because of this, what just happened. It's a humbling experience. It's something that I never expected. And I think it's something that people don't realize what happens behind the scenes.
I mean, I think that's one of the great things about social media. I mean, it comes with a lot of negativity, but the reach that everyday people can have, like you reaching out and helping someone in Saudi Arabia where homosexuality is still condemned. I mean, that's like one of the greatest things to hear. And that's like what keeps people like coming back to pages like yours, the authenticity, the genuine like knowledge that you have that you can offer to help people, strangers all over the world. But with that said, please don't go showing your anus pictures to Dr. Carlton. And that's a isolated incident. So,
right. Yeah.
It's not 3 people with asshole pictures. Okay.
Yeah. Part of my humor in TikTok and Instagram as well is, I'm a butt doctor. So I'm 5 feet up people's colons all day long. So you have to have a certain sense of humor to be able to do that. So one of my TikToks is me staring off out into space, and 525,600 minutes comes on my rent. And it says, when people ask how many buttholes I've seen, and I do 525,600, So.
No, I love, no, you're it's a good mix of education, sex education, being positive about sex, but it's also like very funny. Like, did you know you were going to be this comedic on social?
I had no idea. I always thought I was funny, but I didn't think anybody else did.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like a lot of humor. Every other video, I was like giggling at midnight when I was scrolling through your feed. So it's definitely worth checking out. But I don't want to take up a ton of your time, but I'm going to ask you a few more questions about sex and some common and uncommon questions about gay culture. But before we get into that, because you are now an influencer, you are a viral TikTok star. I saw you did some collaborations and you're working with Scruff. So tell people a little bit about how you partner with Scruff and what you're doing with them.
Scruff has been an amazing partner. Scruff is, a social app and dating app aimed at hairy guys and the people who like them. But not only just that, but everyone. So it's a very inclusive organization. I love lately how a lot of the social media for Scruff is aimed at diversity and cultural body positivity.
Yeah.
Every body type, every skin color, every ethnicity. I'm loving it. So when I got the chance to work with them and add some gay sex ed on their social websites, I do some stories for them. I do some reels for them about things like PrEP and PEP and U equals U and a lot of different things. And it's been an amazing partnership. I'm big on TikTok, they're big on Instagram. So it's been beneficial to both of us.
Yeah. You scratch their hairy back, they scratch your, I don't know if your back is smooth or hairy, but.
Yeah, and the people at Scruff are so awesome and so much fun to work with, and they're very easygoing, and they're very very supportive of me and very protective of me, because TikTok is very homophobic a lot of times. When I post videos that are informational on there and TikTok takes them down, Scruff will go after them and say, hey, listen, this is very homophobic. We don't like what you're doing here. This is clearly not violating anything. You need to change this. And they do. So yeah. I'm really appreciative of how proactive Scruff has been.
And supportive to their own community. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely.
Great. Are you working with any other brands, or is it just Scruff?
I've also partnered with Gun Oil. It's a lubricant company. It's kind of a cool story. There's this Marine who was out in the field in battle and had a lot of other guys around him as well. He needed to take matters into his own hand. He didn't have any lubricant to take care of business. So he started using the dimethicone oil out of his gun. And he realized, hey, this stuff is slippery. So,
No
um,
idea. This story is turning me on. I had no
oh yeah,
idea.
it's really hot. And he said that they even made like Jack Shacks in the desert during the war, where guys could go in and do their business with the dimethicone oil. And so when he got out of the military, he decided to make a lubricant brand out of it. And so the gun oil silicone is basically where that came from.
I love that story. I had
And
no idea.
and it's funny, I've been using gun oil for like 20 years, 15 years. It's been around for about 20 years. I've been using it for 15 years as my favorite brand. And for them to kind of partner with me to do more sex education has been amazing. And to not only spread the information about a company that I love and a product that I love, but it's just, I don't know, it's one of those things where I never pictured myself 2 years ago being able to do something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's incredible. That's incredible. So we're going to head into our portion of the interview where we ask some advice and tips, because you are the gay butt doctor. And he has so much information on his TikTok, guys. You really should check it out. You're probably going to see some of the content that I ask about on his feed already, but we're going to start it off with just some gay housekeeping, all right? Things
Absolutely.
that we should ask at the doctor. So, Dr. Carlton, when a person who participates in anus sex, who may happen to be a person in our community, what should they be checking for at the doctor?
Okay, being open about your sexual activity is really important with your doctor. And like I said earlier, if you can't find a doctor that you are comfortable with, the Gay and Lesbian Medical Association at glma.org can help you locate one through their zip code thing. But at the doctor, you should remember that getting checked where you play is important. So if you stick it in your mouth, you need your throat swabbed. If you stick it in your butt, you need your butt swabbed. If you use your front, if your urethra, if you're male, female, trans, non-binary, whatever, if you're using your front hole, you need to have that area either swabbed or a urine test for gonorrhea and chlamydia. If you have a throat and gonorrhea infection or an anal gonorrhea infection, doing a urine test is not going to find it. And a lot of doctors don't realize that. And certainly a lot of people in our community don't realize that. The great thing about PrEP is part of the whole profile of getting your testing done includes blood tests for HIV, for syphilis, checking for things like hepatitis C, and certainly your kidney panel, which needs to be done every 3 months while you're on PrEP, but also making sure that you do oral and anal swabs and urine tests if you play in those areas. So get checked where you play, get your blood tests for gonorrhea, for HIV and definitely syphilis. Keep an eye on hepatitis C, although it's not really often spread sexually, but it can be. So get those checked. And so that's all part of the checkup.
Yeah.
Now, another important thing is that there's a new study called the Anchor study that's out of UCSF that shows that people with human papillomavirus, or HPV, the virus that causes anal warts and genital warts, that if that infects your anus and you're HIV positive, you have a much, much higher risk of developing anal cancer. But if you treat those areas with your proctologist and get rid of them, then your risk of anal cancer goes dramatically down. So it's important, especially if you're HIV positive, to make sure that you get anal swabs or even a visualized anoscopy done at least every year or two, just to look and see what's going on back there to make sure that no lesions are popping up. For my younger gay men and for gay men up to 45, really, the HPV vaccine has been approved all the way up to 45. We used to think about HPV as a female problem for cervical cancer because it is the risk. It's why people get cervical cancer is HPV, but it's also the reason why people get anal cancer and even oropharyngeal cancer. So get your HPV vaccine if you're young and if you're active, especially in this age where people aren't using condoms anymore because of PrEP. It's really important to do everything you can for harm reduction. And that's one of the things I'm all about is harm reduction. I realize that I can preach till I'm blue in the face about using condoms, which is obviously advised, but people aren't going to do that. So I tell you, hey, if you're not going to use condoms, this is what you need to know. Get tested, get on PrEP if you're not already on it. If you're HIV positive, get undetectable, so that you live a normal, healthy life. Inspect the merchandise before you play. It's okay to give it a little look or a sniff. And if you see something or smell something you don't like, get the hell out of there. Next.
Just don't do it if you don't feel safe. Or
absolutely, yeah. So
something rolled out across the country now, or is that something you should be asking your doctor when you're going to get these checkups? Is this something that they'll have readily available?
Well, you need to talk to your doctor. Not every doctor is prepared for these tests, and not every doctor knows how to do these tests. So, anal swabs for HPV sometimes are done by HIV doctors, sometimes they're done by proctologists, sometimes they're done by family practitioners. So it really depends on the level of comfort and really the majority of the practice of that doctor. So definitely, and as far as vaccines go, make sure you get your hepatitis A and B vaccine, make sure that you get your COVID vaccine, make sure that you get and your booster. And then your HPV vaccine is also a very helpful way to protect in the long run against long-term risks.
Okay. All right. And since we're talking about, anal cancer and these checkups, just to tie off the medical questions, can you explain to people, you did it a little bit just now, but the importance of getting a colonoscopy? Can you explain to our out there why it's important to get a colonoscopy, exactly what it is, and
Sure. Well, colonoscopies are done to prevent colon cancer, to look and screen for colon cancer, but also to prevent colon cancer, and also to look for other causes of why your gastrointestinal tract might not be functioning properly, like abdominal pain, bleeding, diarrhea, or other things. Colon cancer is one of the leading cancer killers of Americans, and it's totally preventable with the colonoscopy. There's no link between gay sex and colon cancer, but all people should get colonoscopy starting at age 45 for screening purposes. So that means you don't have any symptoms, you don't have any family history of colon cancer, but at age 45, you need to do a colonoscopy at least every 10 years to look for polyps, which are the precancerous changes that can happen before colon cancer. You take those out, you don't get colon cancer. Now that changes if you have a family history of colon cancer. If your mom, dad, brother, sister, your first degree relative has colon cancer, then you should start 10 years before the onset of their colon cancer, or age 40, whichever comes first. So if your dad had colon cancer at 35, you need to start your colonoscopies at 25.
Okay.
If your dad had colon cancer at age 60, you need to start at 40. So the importance of this is that I see so many people come into my office who never got their screening colonoscopy. They come in with symptoms like bleeding, increasing constipation, weight loss, abdominal pain, and they ended up already having colon cancer, which could have been prevented. So the recommendations I said about screening, those are just when you don't have symptoms. If you have symptoms like increases in bleeding, changes in your bowel habits, abdominal pain, unintentional weight loss, that isn't screening, that's diagnostic and needs to be looked at.
Okay.
No matter what age you are.
A person be going for a colonoscopy? Is it once a year, twice a year?
Colonoscopy is really not that frequent. A screening colonoscopy is done every 10 years. If you have a family history, every 5 years. If you have a personal history of higher risk things like previous colon cancer or a genetic family syndrome of cancer, then more frequently. Or if you have inflammatory bowel disease like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, then you'll be doing them every 1 to 3 years based on how long you've had those disorders.
Okay. All right. Knowledge is power. Thank you, Dr. Carlton.
You bet.
One more sort of serious question, a little bit of gay housekeeping, and then we're going to move on to the fun stuff.
Sure.
So we all know the stigma that surrounds HIV and AIDS, and especially in our community, no matter if you are HIV positive but undetectable, people still will sort of shame you. So can you explain to people what it means to be HIV positive and have an undetectable status?
Yeah, a lot of people hear about undetectable or HIV undetectable or U equals U, or if you see on dating apps, treatment as prevention listed under the HIV status. when you're HIV positive, if you take medications to get your viral levels to undetectable, which means that the virus levels are so low they cannot be detected by standard laboratory tests, then it's been scientifically proven through numerous studies that the virus cannot be passed through sex. So if a person is HIV undetectable, that means they are untransmittable. So U equals U. So one of the biggest things about stigma in our community has been that a lot of people see that HIV positive status and start blocking people or being nasty. I think some of the worst discrimination against HIV positive people comes from within our own community, and it's really sad and shameful. And I have friends, very close friends, who say that people have found out they're HIV positive on a dating app and suddenly blocked them. It's just rude.
It's cruel. It's rude. It's inhumane, really.
Yeah, and honestly, can you imagine blocking someone out of your life that could be the person that you were meant to be with and you fell in love with just because they're positive and it's something that doesn't really mean anything as long as they're on medications? So I think everyone is responsible for their own healthcare. Just because just keep that in mind when you're making decisions about how you treat other people, for sure. U equals U. Don't let that scare you. Again, ultimately, everyone's responsible for their own protection. These days with PrEP adds an even larger degree of protection. So if someone's undetectable and you're on PrEP, there is basically zero chance that anything bad is going to happen from the HIV standpoint. That
just sounds like a good time to me. I don't know.
Yeah. But I'm glad you brought it up, because, like I said, it's a source of real shame in our community. I mean, we need to do better.
I mean, there's so much ignorance surrounding it, and knowledge really is power. I mean, sometimes even on these apps, when I say I'm on PrEP, people have no idea about what that is, and they just know it's associated with HIV, but the prevention of, or whatever the case may be, and they have no understanding of it. And I've been blocked just from saying I'm on PrEP, So
oh, wow.
We really gotta read up on things. Google is there for all of us, and Dr. Carlton's TikTok is there for those who are social media fans. So on to some fun stuff now, Dr. Carlton.
Definitely.
This question comes up at every brunch that I attend when we're 3 or 4 mimosas deep in. Can you or can you not come out of your ass?
There is no ejaculate that comes rectally from anal sex. Now, your anus can lubricate a little tiny bit with mucus. Mucus is a natural protective barrier that can happen. You may see a little bit from time to time. People will say, "Oh, I went to the bathroom and there's just like little clear gel that came out." What is that? What does that mean? That's just rectal mucus, and as long as it's clear, that's just a normal thing that happens. So some people have a little mucus. Lubrication is a lot of the of what you're seeing, and then obviously prior loads could be part of what comes out as well. So
when we're looking at theatrics of porn and they're saying screaming on this, whatever.
Oh yeah, that's usually a combination of mucus, lube, and prior loads.
And you're too the gym,
Yeah, and a lot of people also should realize that porn has a place in life, and I fully support sex workers and applaud. I have their backs, really. But some of the things in porn are theatrical. There are a lot of lubes that are made to look like cum. So you see these big loads of what looks like cum dropping out of some people, and a lot of times it's not even cum.
Yeah, that it's all editing, folks. It's all editing. So no, you can't come out of your ass. A little mucus here and there, but that's not the case. All right. So our next question. Sometimes people will refer to active bottom, and they refer to his walls, and they'll say he has no walls left. So is there such a thing as too much anal sex where you're just loosey goosey, or is that just what?
Well, with a standard penis, there's no such thing as too much anal sex, in my opinion. But we have a lot of different things going on in our community. Fisting's becoming a lot more popular. The anus itself at rest is super tight, and the outer layer is the external sphincter made out of skeletal muscle. The inner layer is smooth muscle, and at rest it's super tight. But there's ways to make it relax. We can talk about that in a few moments, but that layer of muscle, as long as it remains intact, has a great snapback in most cases. Things that can injure it are things like when something jams in there too fast, like if somebody just goes in there without warming it up and rips the muscle there a little bit, called a fissure. Deep fissures can damage that muscle layer and make it harder for that muscle to close. Prior surgeries can make it harder to close. You would think with fisting that just because someone fists means they're super duper loose. Now, some people may be, because the wider the object that you put in there for the longer amount of time, the longer it's going to be relaxed. But I've had guys who are prominent fisters in the community come into my office to get their colonoscopies and things. And before the rectal examination, or when I do the rectal examination, I would have no idea that they were a fister based on what I'm feeling. So it really is dependent on the person's anatomy, dependent on exactly what's happened in there. But in general, I've had people who've had fists up there who have a pretty strong snapback. So now there are others who are loose, but it really is different for everybody.
Yeah. All right. Shout out to all the prominent snapbackers out there. So we were talking a little bit about the damage that could happen when someone just tries to ram an object or their penis in there. So what is a way that someone new to bottoming, or even someone that's been doing it for years, what's a way they can relax and sort of do a little bit of warming up before their object or person comes over to start penetrating?
Absolutely. My number one video, I think, through social media is a technique I've coined called the butt clock. So if we talked about earlier how the anus is a circular muscle. So if you think of it as a circle, like a clock, that external muscle layer is something that you can control with your mind. You can make it squeeze and release and squeeze and release. That internal layer, the internal anal sphincter, is not something that you can control, but through manual stimulation, you can make it relax. So I tell people to just insert a finger into the anus about 2 inches and pull over to 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 9 o'clock or 12 o'clock. So just gently, don't jam it down in there, but just gently pull down at 6 o'clock or up at 12 o'clock or over, and hold it for like 30 seconds. Just hold it there and then move to another clock position, 3, 6, 9, or 12. I call it the rosary, the anal rosary, but or the anal cross, not the rosary. But yeah, so it really does a good job of relaxing. So that tiny little circle can become a bigger circle, so that something bigger can come in there. And I've had people all around the world, including women, men, people who have been gay and who've been having anal sex for 30 years and didn't know about this, say, "Oh my God, you've revolutionized my anal sex life. You made it possible for me and my partner to enjoy anal sex, because now we make it part of foreplay." He gets in there, he slides his finger in over to the side a little bit, he moves it over to the other side a little bit, up or down. I relax, and then boom, I'm ready to go.
I love it.
So yeah, so on my Instagram, I'm able to get into this stuff a little bit more in detail without getting banned. But,
yeah.
But things that you can do as a bottom, the butt clock technique, where you can relax your hole. Start on top so that you control how fast something goes in you, so that you don't get injured. So if you're bottoming or you're really, really tight, you're going to want to do that butt clock. You want to start on top and gently slide down until everything is completely girth wise in there, so that you don't want to stretch so fast that you cause a tear. lubrication is really key. I like silicone lube. I know it's a little messy, but if you put a towel down, silicone lube really has that extra glide. It serves as a good protector, and you don't have to reapply it as often as you do with water-based lube. Now, when it comes to sex toys, don't use silicone lube with sex toys. A lot of times it can cause a degradation of the sex toy, especially if they're made out of silicone as well.
Really?
Absolutely. And another big thing with lubrication, one of the big points I want to make sure that people are aware of, people say to me, hey, is coconut oil a good lube? Or what if I just use baby oil or whatever I've got around the house at the time? It's important for people to know, if you're using barrier protection with latex, that some things are not latex safe. Silicone lube, water-based lube are absolutely made to be used with condoms. On the other hand, things that are truly oil-based, like coconut oil or baby oil or even Vaseline, those products can degrade the latex and cause the condom to break, and therefore you lose your barrier protection. So it's important to keep that in mind if you're using barrier protection.
Okay, but if they're barebacking, is petroleum jelly even safe to enter into us in that capacity?
Well, I mean, for the amount that you're going to be using, I don't really I don't advise petroleum jelly, but if it's all you got, it's better than spit,
Well, that was gonna wrap up the question, because we've all been at the gym or somewhere and things happen spontaneously, and good old fashioned spit has at some point entered all of us, I'm sure, in some capacity.
Absolutely. And that while it's very, very hot and, being in the moment and like that, it certainly is not ideal for a bottom, because you're not getting yourself a chance to lubricate adequately. So you are putting yourself a little bit more risk. While I'm sure we've all done it, it's definitely, I think, maybe having a little bag of something in your gym bag or in your car or in your backpack, some various things that you can have to be ready for those spontaneous moments, just in case.
Every gay should pack a whole kit, and my whole kit.
Absolutely.
Wet wipes, the flushable organic ones.
Lube.
Okay. Everyone should practice safe sex if that's their preference, but that condom has been in my whole kit for years now. I ain't never touched it. I might edit that part out. I don't know. What a lot of people carry, but it may be controversial. What's your take on poppers? Because that's in my whole kit. Now, there's a lot of studies about poppers. People say you should do them. A lot of people still do them. What is your take on poppers?
Well, obviously, poppers are very popular in our community, and in other communities as well. It's one of those things where you need to know the risks and benefits and for harm reduction with it. I mean, every drug really has a potential to cause harm. And trust me, in our community, there's a lot of that going on. But even between things like alcohol and cigarette smoking, and then other harder things harder drugs, poppers are still in that area where harm can definitely be done with them. People don't realize that where they got their name, poppers, is from its medical usage. It's an amyl nitrate or nitrite based medication early on. The chemical formulas have changed over time, but early on it was used as a capsule that you would pop open and sniff, and it would relax the muscles in the coronary arteries for people who are having chest pain or a heart attack. So almost kind of like a nitroglycerin pill. So with that relaxation of the smooth muscle of the veins, the smooth muscle of the anus also relaxes, as that of the vagina and the blood vessels to your head and other places. So you do get a loosening of the anal muscles to allow easier penetration. You get a head rush. That being said, a lot of people don't like the headache of the head rush. They can't stand it. They get horrible, intense headaches. There have been some forms of poppers in the past that have had chemical compounds in there that can cause vision damage. And then as someone who really knows that people are going to use them no matter what I say, no doctor's ever going to tell you to use poppers. But I always tell people, hey, here's some things you need to know if you're going to use poppers. Number one, if you have a heart condition, or if you've had a stroke, or any sort of other disease that puts you at risk for use of poppers, don't use them, because you don't want to have a stroke. You don't want to have a heart attack. If you take Viagra or Cialis or the other boner pills, make sure that you don't use poppers while you're taking that, because poppers have an adverse reaction with those pills to make your blood pressure really tank, and you can have a stroke, you can pass out, you can have a heart attack. It's a huge drop in blood pressure that happens with that phenomenon. The third thing is intense heat. I tell people, you go to a sauna or a steam room or a bathhouse, the smell of poppers is pretty potent through a lot of those places, but that's a dangerous place to use poppers, because intense heat also relaxes your blood vessels a lot. And if you're already your heart's racing, your blood vessels are dilated, and then you hit poppers in that intense heat, especially when it's like 120, 130 degrees in some of those saunas, you can absolutely pass out and die. There've been reports of deaths in saunas.
I worked out at a gym in West Hollywood, and I'm not going to say the gym's name, but a man around my age died in the steam room because of, cruising in the sauna and was high on the poppers, and he just slapped.
So like anything, it's a personal decision. Medically, obviously, like I said, no doctor is going to advise you to do it, but if you do it, keep these things in mind.
Yeah. All right. One more question, because this one I've always been a little query about, but the second hole, because you'll hear it often referred to when someone's deep in there, and the bottom is like, oh, you're in my second hole, and it's a big boost of confidence for the top. The second hole, is that even something that should be fucked with? No pun intended. That you can actually access with the penis? I mean, what is the second hole?
I wish I had my little anatomy chart with me here now, but if you look at what the second hole really is, the anal sphincter is what I call the first hole. So there's the external and internal anal sphincter, which is the bottom part. As you go in about 8 to 10 inches up, the rectum is pretty much straight, but then it takes a curve, and the sigmoid colon starts. So there's you go in and up, and then it goes like that.
Yeah.
And so that drastic turn is the rectosigmoid junction. So that's really the second hole. It's really a turn more than a hole. There's not a new hole.
Okay.
But it's like I said, it's about 8 to 10 inches up in there. So the only way, unless you are really hung, the only way you're going to hit that is if you are fisting or using a really big object.
And when you access it, does it provide another level of sensation or pleasure for the bottom, or is it just another part that they're tapping?
Well, people have definitely said that they have an intense sensation when that happens, that it's just, sends them to the moon. But like I said, with that, everybody's different. And again, you're going pretty deep in there, so you have to be really careful. If you're putting something in there, you don't, because there's such a drastic turn, you don't want to just jam something in there. A lot of the injuries that we see in the emergency room from anal penetration are people who were high, who didn't realize how high they were, and they jammed something big up in there and went too deep and went too fast, and it caused a tear because of that big turn. So that's something that people really need to be. That's why, if you see people in fisting videos, they start really, really slow, and they kind of gradually go, and the bottom is always in control, so that they can say, hey, that hurts. And I really recommend, if people are going to be fisting, make sure that you aren't high. Make sure that you are completely aware of how things feel, because if you are super high and you're getting fisted, you could really get hurt. And
Yeah.
that's when people get hurt, because they don't realize that something's going in too hard or too fast or too deep. So so try to keep your wits about you.
Yeah. All right, Doc. I think we're going to close out with the questions. Why don't you tell the people what you have going on for the new year? Are you traveling to any cities? Are you working with anyone? Any other interviews that you have coming up?
Oh, well, with the pandemic, things are a little bit crazy right now. So everything's always kind of in flux with that. Right now, I'm booked as one of the headliners for Austin Kink Weekend, which is in Austin, Texas. It's their first annual Kink Weekend. That'll be in Austin from April 8th through the 10th. So it'll be a lot of gear. I'll be doing some sex ed talks. There's some other people in the kink community who are pretty prominent who are going to be there as well. That's really the first thing I have coming up in the new year. I'm on Instagram at Dr. Carlton, spelled out DoctorCarlton. That's the best place to reach me if you have a question or a comment or want to reach me for anything. TikTok as well as the same, Dr. Carlton, spelled out DoctorCarlton. But again, I'm not able to read a lot of the messages on TikTok because they've changed that format now. You can't really just randomly message someone anymore on there. I have a Twitter that's Dr._Carlton. I'm looking to start building some podcasts. I've been on 15 podcasts this past year. It's been an amazing experience, but a lot of people have said, hey, you really should have your own podcast. So I'm looking at the right situation for that.
In the wealth of knowledge. Absolutely.
And, I kind of envision my future as the kind of the gay Dr. Ruth, for people who know who that is. Dr. Ruth was an icon in sex ed. I want to be able to be that for our community.
Yeah. Where can people check out those podcast episodes that you've been on?
On my Instagram, I have under the buttons on Instagram, I have the different podcasts that I've been on. The most prominent one I've been on is with Shaun T, who's just amazing. And not only have I been on his podcast, but I've become his friend through it. And that's just amazing. Shaun he's inspiring like me. He's gay. He has kids. He is out and proud. And he is just an inspiration for everything.
And he's hot. Let's not leave that part out. He's gorgeous.
Oh my God. Yeah. That goes without saying. That man is one hot man. And I feel so lucky to be, in contact with him and able to reach out to him and ask questions, and for him the same thing. It's been an amazing experience. So Shaun T, the Trust and Believe podcast I was on earlier this year. I've been on American Sex with Sonny Megatron. Lots of podcasts.
Awesome. Now, are your kids more impressed with the fact that you're a doctor or you're a viral TikTok star? Which one impresses you?
We don't really talk about it unless unless I come across someone who they really like. So I was at Bear Week in Provincetown, and I met Kevin Chamberlain, who's on this Disney show called Jessie. But he's also a bear and very gay and just an amazing guy. And he came up to me at Bear Week and said what a fan he was of me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I've watched your show with my kids forever. And so when I took a picture with them and sent it to them, they were like, oh my God, So if it's things on their level, they're impressed with it. Otherwise, we don't bring up TikTok.
Yeah. Probably for the best.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Carlton. Well, do you have anything else you want to let people know about? I mean, I really do think that your social media is going to continue to blow up in the new year. And I really do hope that you start that podcast, because there's definitely a need for the information that you're providing, not just to the gay community. There's tons of freaky people out there that are exploring butt play. But more than that, people need to know about their health. So I think amazing thing. You're definitely getting into heaven for the work you're doing.
Well, thank you. Well, Rahmel, it's been awesome talking to you. Again, if everyone wants to follow me on Instagram or on TikTok, Instagram is the best place to message me. And again, I tend to probably go live on there more than on Instagram. And
Yeah.
then on TikTok, excuse me. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Carlton. I appreciate you taking the time out to do this interview. And again, people, please ask his permission before you start saying anus pictures. All right. All right,
They're
Dr.
like
Carlton.
elbows to me at this point. Yeah. All right, bye-bye.